On the bright and joyous morning of December 25th, the air around Lillian's home was alive with celebration. Christmas songs blared softly from an old radio, mixing with the laughter and chatter of friends and family who had come to congratulate Lillian. It was a day of double joy, a celebration of Christ's birth and of Lillian's recent achievements. She had graduated with a second-class upper degree and was soon to embark on her NYSC journey to another state. The aroma of delicious meals wafted through the air, drawing everyone into the heart of the celebration. Mama Lillian had spared no effort in preparing a sumptuous feast. Steaming jollof rice, tender chicken, fried plantains, and a large pot of pepper soup sat proudly on the dining table. Plates clinked as guests helped themselves, and glasses of juice and soda were raised in toast after toast to Lillian's bright future. Lillian, dressed in a simple yet elegant green dress, moved around the house with a radiant smile. Her cousins teased her about leaving for NYSC and meeting new people, while the older relatives blessed her with prayers and advice. Mama Lillian, though busy serving and attending to her guests, had another task on her mind. She had prepared a portion of the food for Pastor Michael, the man she believed had played a significant role in her family's blessings. After carefully packing the food into a shiny insulated flask, Mama Lillian wrapped it in a neat white nylon bag. She intended to deliver it personally to Pastor Michael, but with the guests still needing her attention, she called Lillian aside. "My dear, take this food to Pastor Michael's house," Mama Lillian said, handing her the bag. "Tell him we are celebrating your graduation and upcoming NYSC posting. Come back immediately, okay?" Lillian nodded eagerly. "Yes, Mama," carrying the food with both hands. Lillian felt a sense of pride. She admired Pastor Michael deeply and was happy to be the one delivering the food to him. She adjusted her dress, picked up a matching scarf for her hair, and stepped outside, greeted by the warm sunlight of Christmas morning. As Lillian approached Pastor Michael's house, she couldn't help but marvel at the grandeur of his mansion. It stood tall and imposing, with large gates and walls painted in pristine white. The driveway was lined with neatly trimmed hedges, and a fountain tricked softly in the corner of the front yard. When she reached the front door, she hesitated for a moment before knocking softly, her heart pounding slightly, not out of fear, but excitement to meet the renowned Pastor Michael again. The door opened slowly, and there stood Pastor Michael dressed in a white kaftan that gleamed in the sunlight. His eyes widened slightly in surprise when he saw Lillian standing at his doorstep. "Lillian," he said, his voice warm but tinged with shock. "What a surprise! Come in, my dear." Lillian smiled shyly. "Good evening, Pastor Michael." Pastor Michael's gaze lingered on her for a moment, taking in her youthful beauty. She looked radiant, her skin glowing under the sunlight, her smile so pure and innocent, and opened the door wider. The moment Lillian stepped into Pastor Michael's grand sitting room, she was struck by its opulence. The leather sofas gleamed under the light of a crystal chandelier, and the large flat-screen television hung on the wall. The polished tiles reflected the glow of the Christmas lights twinkling softly around the room. A faint scent of air freshener mixed with the smell of freshly baked bread lingered in the air. "Please, my dear, have a seat," he said, his voice as inviting as the luxurious room itself. Lillian obeyed, settling carefully into the plush cushion of the sofa. She placed the bag of food on the table in front of her and glanced around, her eyes wide with admiration. Everything about the room spoke of wealth and taste, a testament to the generous offerings from the devoted congregation. "Pastor, you have a beautiful home," Lillian said, her tone filled with genuine admiration. Pastor Michael chuckled. "Thank you, Lillian. God has been faithful." He moved to sit across from her, his gaze steady and a faint smile playing on his lips. As he settled into his seat, he glanced briefly at the clock on the wall. His assistant, Peter, was away on holiday, leaving the house completely quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Pastor Michael leaned forward slightly, his voice warm and welcoming. "What brings you to my house today, Lillian? On Christmas Day?" Lillian's smile brightened as she picked up the bag of food from the table and held it out towards him. "Mama sent me," she said, her voice light and cheerful. "She cooked a lot of food because we are celebrating. So my family and friends came to congratulate me for graduating with good grades and for my upcoming NYSC posting." "Your mother is truly a kind woman," he continued, setting the bag aside. His smile lingered, but his thoughts were far from holy. Lillian turned to leave. "Pastor, I need to go now," she said politely, brushing her hands together. "Mama said I should deliver the food and return immediately, since we still have visitors at home." Pastor Michael tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing as he smiled. "So soon?" he asked, his voice warm and gentle. But there was an undertone of disappointment that made Lillian pause for a moment. "Yes, Daddy," she replied, smiling shyly. "I don't want Mama to worry." He nodded slowly, pretending to accept her reason. "All right, my dear, that's fine," he said, though his mind was already racing, formulating a plan to keep her there longer. He stood up from the sofa and gestured towards the table where the food sat. "But before you go, can you help me carry this food into the dining area? It's just through this door." Lillian hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Okay, Daddy," she said, picking up the flask and following him as he opened the door to the inner sitting room. As soon as she placed the flask on the dining table, she heard the unmistakable clink of the door, locking behind her. Lillian turned around quickly, her brows furrowed in confusion. Pastor Michael stood there leaning against the door, his hand still on the key, a sly smile spreading across his face. "Pastor, why did you lock the door?" she asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and unease. He chuckled softly, walking towards her. "Don't be alarmed, my dear," he said, his tone as smooth as honey. "I just wanted to have a private word with you. I've been meaning to tell you something for a while now." Lillian took a small step backwards, clutching her hands together nervously. "What is it, Pastor?" Pastor Michael looked her straight in the eye, his voice steady and direct. "Lillian, I want you to be my wife," he said, his voice as bold as his gaze. For a moment, Lillian stared at him in shock. She had never imagined that Pastor Michael, the man she respected and revered, would say such a thing. But as the initial surprise wore off, she began to feel flattered. After all, Pastor Michael was a renowned man of God, admired by many, and he was still single. "Thank you, Pastor," she said with a small smile, lowering her gaze shyly. "But if you want to marry me, you have to make it official and talk to my family." Pastor Michael smiled wider, relieved that she hadn't outright rejected him. "Of course, my dear," he said smoothly. "I will do everything the right way. But for now, let's celebrate this special moment. Your graduation, your NYSC, and our future together." He gestured for her to sit down, and she obeyed, now feeling more relaxed and even excited about the idea of marrying such an important man. Pastor Michael walked over to a small bar in the corner of the room and picked up 2 wine glasses. "This calls for a toast," he said, his back turned to her as he carefully poured the wine. His hands were steady as he reached for a small vial hidden at the back of the bar. He uncapped it and poured a clear, odorless liquid into one of the glasses, swirling it gently. He handed her the drugged glass, his smile never wavering. "Here is to you, Lillian," he said, raising his glass. Lillian blushed and accepted the glass. "Thank you, Pastor," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. They clinked their glasses together, the sound ringing softly in the room. "To your graduation, your NYSC, and our marriage," he said, his voice dripping with charm. "To God be the glory," Lillian replied, taking a sip from her glass. The wine was sweet, and she took another sip, enjoying the taste. Pastor Michael watched her intently, his smile growing as he noticed her eyelids beginning to drop. "Are you feeling all right, my dear?" he asked, feigning concern. Lillian blinked, trying to shake off the sudden wave of drowsiness washing over her. "I'm fine, Pastor," she said, though her voice sounded sluggish even to her own ears. "I just feel a little tired." "That's normal," he said soothingly, reaching out to take the glass from her hand before it could slip from her fingers. "You've had a long day. Just rest here for a while." Before she could protest, she immediately fell back on the sofa and slept off, all celebrations forgotten. Pastor Michael set the glasses aside and stood over her, his eyes dark with intent. "God has truly given me this opportunity," he smiled while murmuring to himself. As she drifted into a deep slumber, Pastor Michael sat beside her, watching. His breathing grew heavier, his mind clouded by the burning desires born beneath his pastoral robes. Slowly he reached out, his fingers brushing against her skin. She stirred but did not wake. Encouraged by her unconsciousness, he grew bolder, his heart pounding with forbidden excitement. When he was sure she would not wake, he lay beside her, her lips parted slightly as if she were about to speak, but no words came, only the steady rhythm of her breathing. He took advantage of her vulnerability while she was lost in sleep. By the time he was done, the room was filled with an ill silence. As he stood up, he saw a trace of blood on the cushion. His heart tightened. She was a virgin and he hadn't known, and now it was too late. He stood frozen, his breath unsteady, guilt clawing at his heart. He had always done this with other matured women, without feeling any remorse. But this was different. Shaking, he left her lying there and walked into his main sitting room, his heart pounding for the first time. Regret weighed on him like a heavy chain, and he had crossed a line he would never undo. Back home, Mama Lillian had been very worried about her daughter, whom she had sent to Pastor Michael's house to deliver the food. She couldn't leave to search for her because of the visitors at her house. But the longer Lillian stayed away, the more concerned Mama Lillian became. She trusted Pastor Michael. But what could be keeping Lillian so long? What if something happened to her on the road? Her mind raced with questions. She knew Pastor Michael's house wasn't far, and Lillian was always prompt. Was it the celebration that had kept her? Or was something wrong? The worry grew stronger by the minute, and Mama Lillian couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. She had to find out what had happened to her daughter. She quickly went into her room to change into something casual. Back at Pastor Michael's house, Lillian finally woke up on the cushion she slept on. She looked at herself, and then it dawned on her what had happened while she slept, and she wept terribly. Pastor Michael, whom she and her mother trusted, have defied her. Pastor Michael later entered the room, feeling deeply remorseful for his actions. He walked over to his wardrobe, where he kept some clothes for guests, and picked out something modest. He handed it to her with a heavy heart. She was in tears as she took the clothes, her hands trembling as she went into the bathroom to change. Once she had changed, Pastor Michael's guilt weighed on him. He approached her, his voice full of regret. He pleaded with her not to tell anyone, especially not her mother. His reputation in the Christendom community was important to him, and he feared the consequences of his actions being revealed. He knew, however, that she wasn't like the other women he had encountered. She wasn't someone he could intimidate or control. She promised him that she wouldn't scare anyone, and with that she left quietly, her face marked with sorrow. Pastor Michael stood there, his heart heavy, as the weight of what he had done settled in. When Lillian got home, it was already late. All visitors had left, and she quickly sneaked into her room, knowing her mother had been worried. As soon as the last guest left, Mama Lillian quickly changed into something more casual, planning to go search for her daughter. Just as she was about to leave, she heard the sitting room door open and knew Lillian was back. She called Lillian out, who had already changed into another outfit to avoid questions. Mama Lillian asked her if she was okay, and Lillian replied with a simple yes. Mama Lillian then asked her why she was just coming back from delivering food to Pastor Michael. For the first time in her life, Lillian lied to her mother. She told her that she had decided to visit a friend who lived close to Pastor Michael's house, and when she got there, she found out that her friend's family were also celebrating their daughter's success and upcoming NYSC, so she joined them. Mama Lillian believed her, knowing she had raised her daughter well and trusted her. She smiled, thinking everything was fine. But what Mama Lillian didn't know was that something had happened to Lillian that night. Lillian kept everything to herself, not just because Pastor Michael had asked her to, but because she wanted to protect her own peace of mind. Everything seemed to go well for everyone, and 3 weeks into the new year, Lillian received her NYSC call-up letter. She was posted to Port Harcourt. Lillian and her mother were overjoyed, and they began making preparations for her to report to orientation camp in just a week. They were shopping for everything she would need, but 2 days later, Lillian fell ill. Mama Lillian became worried. Why was this happening just before her daughter had to leave for camp? She took Lillian to the hospital, and after some tests, the doctor confirmed something shocking. Lillian was pregnant. Mama Lillian could hardly believe it. She had raised her daughter well, and she was sure that Lillian was a virgin. She asked the doctor to run another test, which they did, and the result was still the same. The news crushed Mama Lillian. She asked the doctor to discharge her daughter without telling her anything about the test results. On their way home, Mama Lillian stayed calm but couldn't hide her concern. Lillian asked her about the test, but her mother didn't answer right away. She just held onto her daughter, waiting for the right moment. Finally, after they got home, Mama Lillian showed Lillian the test results. When Lillian saw the results, she broke down in tears. Her future, her plans, everything felt ruined. She cried, wondering what had happened to her and how everything had gone wrong. Mama Lillian, though heartbroken, held her daughter and comforted her. After a long while, Mama Lillian asked her who was responsible. Lillian hesitated, still crying, but eventually she knew she had to tell the truth. She remembered the words Pastor Michael had said, the promise she had made to keep the secret, but now she had no choice but to tell her mother everything. When Lillian finally told her mother everything that happened on December 25th, Mama Lillian was in complete shock, her hands trembling as the weight of her daughter's words sank in. It felt as though the ground beneath her had shifted. How could Pastor Michael, a man she had trusted, betray them like this? Lillian, still crying, explained how she had been feeling dizzy after the drink and had told Pastor Michael that she needed to leave. But before she could even get up, she had fainted and fallen asleep on the sofa. She recounted how Pastor Michael had taken advantage of her in that moment of vulnerability and how he had begged her not to tell anyone. As Mama Lillian listened, her heart ached for her daughter. She couldn't believe it. The renowned pastor, who was respected and well known in Abuja, had done something so terrible. Mama Lillian hugged Lillian tightly, wiping away her tears. "Why didn't you tell me earlier, my daughter?" Mama Lillian asked softly, her voice filled with concern. "I was scared, Mama. I didn't know what to do, and he asked me not to tell anyone." Mama Lillian, despite her pain, nodded in understanding. She knew her daughter had suffered a great deal. As a mother, she couldn't imagine how hard it had been for Lillian to carry this secret. But now that it was out in the open, Mama Lillian knew she had to protect her daughter and take the next steps to ensure this would never happen to anyone again. She looked up at Lillian with a calm determination. "We will tell the truth, my daughter. No one can hide from the truth, not even Pastor Michael. You have done nothing wrong, and you will not carry this burden alone. We will get justice." The days that followed were full of difficult conversations and decisions. Mama Lillian contacted a trusted family lawyer and made arrangements to speak with the authorities in Abuja. Though Lillian was scared and nervous, her mother stood by her every step of the way. She reassured her daughter that they would face whatever challenges came their way together. They filed a report and the investigation began. Through all the pain and battles, Lillian learned a valuable lesson about strength, courage, and the importance of standing up for what's right. She realized that her mother's love and support were her greatest source of strength. Lillian's world had been shaken, especially when it was revealed that she was 3 weeks pregnant. The news crushed her. She had been so close to embarking on a new chapter of her life. Her NYSC assignment in Port Harcourt, just days away, but now everything seems uncertain. Her mother, equally heartbroken, stood strong for her daughter. She never once blamed Lillian, understanding that her daughter had been manipulated and taken advantage of. While it was painful, Mama Lillian reminded her that they would face this together and that her future was never over. "Your dreams are still valid," Mama Lillian told her. "Don't let this stop you from achieving all you have worked for. You can still go to NYSC camp. You are strong and you will figure this out." Lillian made the brave decision to go, and soon she found herself to the bus to Port Harcourt, her mother by her side, offering all the encouragement she needed. At the same time, Pastor Michael's world was falling apart. As the truth came to light, he was arrested and charged with his actions. He was jailed for his crimes, and his reputation, once shining so brightly in the Christendom community, was destroyed. His fall from grace was swift and unforgiving, as many people who had once looked up to him now turned their backs on him. Despite the pain and challenges, Lillian completed her NYSC in Port Harcourt. The journey wasn't easy, but with her mother's constant support, Lillian found the strength to carry on. She made new friends and even discovered new dreams for her future. She got a job in a marketing firm in Port Harcourt. Through it all, she knew that the love and strength of her mother had helped her face the impossible. Lillian's courage and resilience were a testimony to her inner strength, and she was determined to build a bright future for herself, free from the shadows of the past. The experience changed her, but it also made her stronger. And with her mother always by her side, Lillian knew she could face whatever came her way.